What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Pokemon Masters video that's going to be a little bit more on the informative side. So I want to talk about the differences between single player and multiplayer mode, like co-op, and kind of go into what makes them different and why you have to approach them differently. So what I'm going into right now is obviously just a single player fight. You can see that my team is 2 support units and 1 damaging unit, and this is pretty much it. So you can see I'm just buffing up, throwing every buff that I've got out here, and then I'm just letting Trico do work, right? For most single-player stuff, this is really all you have to do, because the action gauge at the bottom is shared, right, across everyone. So unless you happen to have a second person with type advantage with you, there's really no advantage to having multiple attackers. Because even if you don't have type advantage, or if you, I'm sorry, even if you do, if your Pokemon that you're using as a support is weaker, your regular sweeper is going to do more damage anyway. Like you saw how much damage Trico was putting out. You just kind of don't need to bring multiple attackers, I guess, in single player. That's the easiest way I can think to explain it, is that multiple attackers just kind of muddy up the field. So you guys already know how tanking works from the beginner's guide video that I just talked about last time. So having 2 attackers means that you're going to get those attackers hit and killed faster. Because once the enemy breaks through your tank, you don't have a second fallback. So like on this team, the primary tank is Superior. And then when Superior dies, it falls over to Dusclops. And then Trico can just kill without worrying about taking any damage because those guys will live. If you were to take out Dusclops and put in, say, Pidgeot or Houndoom or something, as soon as Superior goes down, it's over. And the playstyle for single player is pretty much just what you're seeing me do. Buff like crazy, refill your skill gauge, and just let your best guy sweep, because there's no reason to split up offense and split up buffs like that. It's pretty straightforward. I think that's the nicest thing I can say about it, is that it's pretty straightforward. We'll do a couple just so that you can see what I'm talking about, but I feel like this doesn't need a huge amount of explanation. But I am benefiting from this because I also need to farm this stage. So while I'm talking, I will at least get some stuff out of this. You don't really need to use someone like Trico. So the reason that I use Trico as my primary DPS is I think he's the strongest one in the game right now. Maybe not necessarily like he does the highest total points of damage, but I mean he's the strongest one in that I think he's the best character right now. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. I know a lot of people think that Olivia and Lycanroc are the best character in the game right now. Nobody thinks Chris is. It's really between Brendan and Olivia. And in my opinion, it's Brendan. So Trico is usually the DPS that I bring. I know that on Twitter, I have said in single player, you generally want someone like Blue or Karen who can just sweep the whole field. And that's usually true in a lot of like the easier content. Like what I was just doing, Blue can easily sweep that whole thing. But when you start getting into harder fights, you don't really want AoE so much. Anyway, so this is a single player team. We've kind of already talked about this in the beginner's guide video, but I want to just go over it a little bit more. You have your DPS, you have 2 supports. That, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. Now, you don't need to have these exact supports. I run them because their buffs are both good and they don't overlap. So an important thing was not overstacking your buffs. So like you don't want 2 special attack buffers. You want a special attack buffer and then somebody that buffs something else, right? Otherwise, you're kind of free for a minute. I think Drake is good, Liza's good, Phoebe's good, Rose is good, whatever. Whatever you want to do. For co-op teams, so this gets a little bit harder to talk about. Not necessarily harder to talk about, but this is a bad example because I brought this team specifically because they're all super effective in the blue event. But co-op teams are a little bit more difficult to build because you can't just rely on one attacker, because the odds are your one attacker is not going to make it through. So this is more what a co-op team should look like, in my opinion, is you have attacker 1, attacker 2, and a support. And if you have Dusclops, you can actually do a strategy that people are doing where you just send Dusclops out first and you stack as many possible buffs on the Dusclops as you can. And then when the Dusclops dies, it'll just toss all the buffs to the Pokemon behind it. But I don't think you necessarily need to do that. One thing that people trip up on when they play co-op is that they try to play it like single player. And you don't really want to do that. You know, remember how buff crazy I was going in single player? You really don't want to do that because you want to get your team attack first. You want to get the triple chain into your Unity gauge so that everyone's getting the buffs from Unity. So with Lycanroc, you really only want to do hard. Oh, god damn it. Okay, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. You want to do hard as diamonds. Oh, that was really loud, computer. Why would you do that? You want to do hard as diamonds. So Stone Edge doesn't miss a million times? Sorry. That really loud noise in my ear like completely zeroed out my entire brain. That was awful. Anyway, you want to do hard as diamonds so that the Stone Edge doesn't miss a million times, so that you're always hitting, and then you just want to start attacking. So like this for Alligator, doing 6 trillion buffs, not that helpful. Now we're starting to attack. We went way too slow on this one because we want to get that Unity gauge full, and we want to start doing damage before we get blasted by Pidgeot. Generally, that's kind of the issue. In multiplayer, I see a lot of people do this, which is what the Feraligatr sort of did, and it's what I did because I misclicked hard as diamonds in the beginning, is when you waste too much time buffing in the early game and you don't get that Unity gauge rolling, you're missing out on a lot of additional damage because of the buffs from the Unity gauge, and the opponent's getting closer and closer to that sync move, and you're not getting yours off. So all those buffs that you're getting up, while the opponent is really not taking any damage, they're all going to get wiped out by the sync move. The sync move takes away all of your buffs. So like this Feraligatr, putting another X attack on himself. Let's see if he actually gets any value out of it. Here comes the Air Cutter. He's going to Mega Kick, so he's going to hit something at least. 725. Not terrible. But now the question is, are we going to be able to kill that Pidgeot before we get blasted by his sync move? Doesn't look like it. Maybe if this is all rock. I didn't see who else they had. If this is a triple rock, it might die. Oh, double Brock! Ah, yay! There you go. Good job, team. Is he going to die, though? No, he's not going to die. Okay. So, yeah, the sync combo move doesn't actually... Or not sync combo. What is that called? The Unity attack. Doesn't do that much to the main boss Pokemon. I usually just focus everything on the main boss and then let that Unity attack basically wipe the other two because it more or less does. So Pidgeot should die here, and we should be good to go despite the misplays. To be honest, Pidgeot is not the hardest fight in the game or even really that close to it. It's pretty easy. So we could have done something harder, but this is an easier one to show because you have a little bit of leeway if you mess up. I don't really want to use an example fight where you mess up and you just die. So we did him. We got him. So we're going to go back in again, and hopefully we can get an example of somebody who plays a little bit worse because the Feraligatr was doing okay. It wasn't that bad. I'd like to get a firm example of what not to do if possible. I guess I could be that guy, but I really don't want to go in and someone sees my name and they're like, ugh, we got to play with this guy that doesn't know how to play. So let's see who we get. We got a Blue and a Karen. I don't like that. So Karen players, this is just me being a stereotypical jerk, but Karen players are always bad. Every time I get matched up with a Karen player, I'm immediately like, God, she is going to do terrible. So we're going to go in with the same strategy. Karen, Blue, and Rosa. Okay, whatever. We're going to do My Heart is Diamonds. So then you see the Blues doing the Smell You Later. We're just trying to get the single buff, and then Blue goes right into Air Cutter. Perfect. The Karen is double stacking a Dire hit. You don't want to do that. Everyone please attack. So at least when the Dire hit goes off, she's probably going to start to use Snarl. So then that way we can get our gauge charged up, and then we'll be good to go. Entertain me. She's not using Snarl. So she's super going in on the buffs. So this is what you don't want to do. Because now you see our gauge down there. We're just sitting there like we can't do it without Karen. Now she's probably going to Snarl at least. So, oh my god, she's using Entertain Me. No, 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 no. Okay, so now we lost our chain. Because of the Pidgeot. Everybody please, strike. Strike the enemy. They have a lot of health over there, and that Pidgeot's at a 3. So Houndoom, if it gets hit by the sync move, is going to die. That Houndoom has hit the point now where it can't survive. The good news is the Snarl is going to go off. So we are going to get our Unity gauge. A little bit too little too late, but we're still there. And the Snarl isn't really going to help that much against Pidgeot, because even though it's lowering that special attack, it's going to get a huge buff out of its Sync move anyway. So we really need to try and do as much damage as we can. This will probably kill Machamp. It might kill Torkoal. I don't think it will. It'll probably leave Torkoal, maybe do Half-Life on Torkoal. Yeah, none of us are even super effective against him. And it probably won't do much of anything to Pidgeot. Yeah, no, it didn't. Wow, it didn't even do Half-Life on the Torkoal. It did nothing on the Torkoal. So he's going into the buffing his special attack again. So already all of the work that the Snarls that the Karen did, gone. Not ideal. So he switched into blue, the Karen player did. The blue and my Olivia are both still here. We're about to get popped by the Sync move. So this is why you don't want to go crazy and buff a bunch. In the blue fight, you can kind of get away with it if you kill him quickly. Like in the last game, the Feraligatr was using a lot of X attacks, but it worked out. In this one, it did not work out, so we're about to lose all those buffs. But now that their Sync timer is reset, you can start applying some buffs now, right? So these are gone. It looks like they're both looking at the blue to my left, so I am able to do some buffs because my Lycanroc is pretty close to dead. When you're looking at a Pokemon that's as low as mine is, you need to see if it's the one that's being targeted for attacks. Because if it's being targeted, either one, you need to get out, or two, you can just let him die, I guess. But you want to be attacking. If you're going to let him die, just attack and get as much damage out of him as you can. Because they're not focused on him and they're going after the other Pidgeot, I'm not too worried about it. Yikes, that Pidgeot got blasted. Karen player over here is just buffing. Still buffing. One of these days, that Karen player is going to attack, and that's going to be great. Alright, so I really hope that Hurricane does not hit before the Air Cutter. It is, so the Pidgeot's going down. Yeah. That's okay, though. That was the first death on his squad. We got Lucario in here. That's interesting. So Pidgeot should die here. Probably to my Stone Edge. If not to my Stone Edge, then to the Karen player's Sync move. Yeah, okay, so the Karen player is going to drop a Sync move. This one's over. We got a lot. We got not lucky. Not lucky in this one. It was more that just this fight has a lot of leeway. Because remember everything I said you don't want to do? That Karen player was sitting there doing it. In harder fights, when you get close to the end of co-op, not even really close to the end, I guess like maybe halfway through, it's tough, and the enemies do a lot of damage, and they can take a lot of damage. And Sync moves are devastating. So the more turns... Oh my god. They're gone. Okay, they're both gone. The more turns that you spend sitting there buffing and buffing and buffing and you're not doing any damage, that's wasted time. The more turns you're sitting there with a full move gauge, that's wasted Unity Charge. You don't really want to do that, and you don't want to put your team in that position because, remember, you're part of a group at that point. So even if you're not like a full-on attacking Pokemon, because you can be a supporter. You can come in and play like Rosa and Phoebe and just back the big attackers up and get it done. You can. But you don't want to put them in a position where you're never attacking and where you're never getting that Unity bonus. Because a lot of work in this game in co-op is about team unity. That probably didn't make a whole lot of sense. I feel like I was kind of rambling a little bit, as I am off to do. But you know how it is, guys. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me on Twitter. I will talk to you guys later. Maybe we'll talk about co-op some more in another video. Bye.